Hello, this is James Keddington with Better Me Nation and the Overcome and Become podcast. Thank you for joining us today. This is being streamed live to the Better Me Nation Facebook group. We do that because this is a great community of people who are focused on improving themselves, and we want you to join us. If you're in this community, you get access to this podcast first while it's in its live version, and you can interact with us if you want to. Otherwise, if you're listening, you're subscribing. Thank you for subscribing. We hope that all people listening to the podcast subscribe to it on iTunes or Spotify. That's where we're at. So I want to share with you a story today. All right. So a while ago, my wife and I were talking about this idea of doing hard things, right? And we hear this phrase a lot: do hard things, do hard things. And I was on the hard things bandwagon. I still am. But my wife laughed at me when I said, let's do hard things. She's like, my life's hard. Why would I want to do more hard things? And I sat back and I thought, that makes sense. When life is hard, why would we want to do hard things or more hard things, right? Why should we even care about that? If something's going on with the kids or the finances or at work, why would I intentionally pile it on? And I thought about that for a while, and I stuck with my mindset that we need to do hard things. Here's why. Doing hard things is like exercising our body, right? I walk to the car, I carry the groceries, I do lots of things, I move my body. Why would I exercise? When I go swimming and play sports and games, why would I pile it on and exercise? Well, simple. Because it builds my capacity to do the things I love to do the way I love to do them and helps me do them better. And same thing with doing hard things, right? When we intentionally do hard things, it builds our capacity to overcome the hard stuff when it comes at us. And this is the Overcome and Become podcast. So we're all about building that capacity to overcome, so that way when the hard stuff comes, we can tackle it with confidence, and we can stay focused on being ambitiously becoming our best self. And the New Year's coming up, and a lot of people have on their mind New Year's goals or New Year's resolutions. And a lot of people have on their mind, I'm not going to do one. That's stupid. If I want to set a goal, I'll choose it, whether it's March or June or August or September, and all that's fine too, right? But I know a lot of us, regardless of whether or not we're going to take on a New Year's resolution, we're still thinking about it because everybody's talking about it. And so today we're going to talk about what gets in the way of effective goal setting, right? Because that's what this is goal setting, and how to overcome that. And this is also the last podcast for 2023. I'm going to be spending the remainder of the year preparing for 24 and the lineup and other things going on in the business. But before I check out, I want to share with you some parting thoughts that are important for everyone to know as they head into any new season of life, especially around goal setting. All right. So there's a few things that get in the way of people setting goals and their New Year's resolutions. And even if you failed in the past, it's important to keep trying and go at it, right? And in fact, failure is an important part of the process too, because it's through the failure that we learn sometimes our limitations, but sometimes we exceed what we thought our limitations were. But we also learn a lot about ourselves, a lot about the goal. We realize how different things were than we initially saw them. And it helps shape our view on the world and on our life and on ourselves. And when we get back up, when we go at it again, we realize how resilient we are and how much willpower we possess. So let's talk about some of those things that get in the way of our goals and doing hard things. One of them, which is for everybody, is confidence, right? We talked about this in last week's podcast about having this imposter syndrome and other things like voices in our head. But confidence is a big thing in getting in our way in achieving goals and ambitions and staying ambitious, right? The next thing that gets in the way is our own capacity, right? You can only do what you can do, right? And sometimes the capacity limitation is in our mind, right? We have a limited view of our capacity, but sometimes we've ignored ourselves in such ways that we just aren't able to do things no matter how hard we try, right? So no matter how hard I try right now, I can't swim 50 yards in under 25 seconds. I'm at about 26 and a half, 27 right now. But, under 25, that was my high school, right? Now I can work to improve that capacity, but right now in this moment, I cannot exceed that mark, right? And that's just a physical limitation that I cannot achieve right now, but I'm working towards, right? So capacity is not just limited in our physical sense, but a lot of times we have things inhibiting our mental health or our brain health, our relationships, right? So our capacity gets in the way as well. The third thing is the disciplines that we've established in our lives. Do we have the personal disciplines or the organizational disciplines, the routines to help us achieve things? The fourth thing is consistency, right? Have we established, and this is part of discipline, right? But do we have established consistency in doing things, in maintaining our capacity, our mindset, our self-confidence, right? So that way we can accomplish these things, or are we giving up too easy, right? And the last thing is accountability. And this is huge, right? So many businesses are built, including mine own, around accountability. People just need someone to talk to. They need a system in place that holds them accountable to doing what they said they would do. So we're going to talk about these 5 things today. All right, let's talk about confidence. This is a big one for everyone. I don't care who you are. We all have self-confidence issues. And it's crazy to think that some of the most accomplished people in the world have self-confidence issues, but it's true, they do. And a lot of this comes from the negative self-talk. Negative self-talk is so convincing. And the problem with this negative self-talk is that we would never believe the things we say about ourselves if we were saying them about other people. I'm going to share with you 3 of the things that have been dominant in my mind, and maybe you'll make some correlations to the things in your mind. But more importantly, I'm going to categorize these things into buckets that apply to all of us. One of the lies that I used to tell myself is that I didn't look the part. And this kept me from putting myself out there. But what does that even mean? I don't look the part. Now, I get that in movies, looking the part is important. But in life, right, it's kind of a stupid lie to tell ourselves. Now, I get that some people will judge us how we look, right? And that happens. But that shouldn't hold us back from accomplishing amazing things, because in all pursuits, there's amazing people who don't look the way we think someone should look or how they would look, that are in the top 1% of performers in that category, right? But yet here's this lie telling me that I don't look the part, right? And so that is just a straight up lie, right? So some negative self-talk is a lie. Now, on the inverse, some of the negative self-talk is actually true, but we've convinced ourselves that it's bad, right? So one thing that I used to repeatedly tell myself is that I'm not good enough. Now that may be true, but is it bad? It depends, right? So when I coached water polo, we'd get kids not want to play the sport or play the game because they weren't good enough. And I would say, well, you're not supposed to be good. You've never played before, right? And what would happen is they would compare themselves to other athletes their same age that had been playing for 4 or 5 years and think, well, if I can't be as good as them, why even try, right? My answer is, you should be as good as a 4-year-old playing baseball for the first time, because you've never done it, right? But how many of us in career transitions or a new relationship or a blended marriage, right? For the doing things for the first time, feeling like I can't do it. I'm not good enough. You're not supposed to be good, right? It's true. You are not good enough. It's true. You may not be good enough yet, right? See, that word yet is missing, or not yet, right? And so this is important to understand that, like, there are things also here that say, I may not be good enough, but that's okay, right? And so here's the truth, right? Or there are other lies like, why is this even a bad thing? There are other lies that I would tell myself. I would say, I can't remember what this is off the top of my head because I've gone through this process of dismissing these things, except they're now completely out of my mind. I should have written them in my journal a long time ago or kept it so I could reference this, but I didn't. But the reality was I would think something, and when I did an analysis on it, I'm like, why is that even bad? It's not even bad. Who even cares? Like, it may be true, but I made this up. There's this quote, I think it's from P.T. Barnum. I think it's him. I could be wrong. Somebody correct me. But he said, I've gone through a lot of bad things in my life, and some of them even happened, right? I think sometimes we ruminate on these negative things that we see, and we, inflate them to this big thing where it's just not a big thing. Nobody else cares. You're the only one caring about it. So it's important to analyze these things, right? So here's the next one, right? The negative self-talk is stuff that's also true, but we fail to recognize our strengths that counterbalance that weakness, right? So here's a lie that I would tell myself. I break things. It's true. I break things. And I would share this. I shared this last week, right? But it wasn't until I acknowledged that I'm also a problem solver that I stopped caring that I broke things, right? Because sometimes in order to be good at your strengths, you have to deep dive into your weaknesses so you can expose those strengths, right? So if I didn't break things, how would I figure things out? How would I learn them, right? You know that kid where the mom said, don't push that button, don't push that button. I pushed the buttons, right? I remember I was at work a long time ago, and got this new copier and had all these buttons. And the office manager, I love her so much. Her name's Laura. She's like my sister. I love her so much. She's like, James, don't push the buttons until we all know what they do. See, Laura's strength was in reading the manual, right? My strength was in fixing what I broke. But I became a problem solver. They're the ones, they came to me when there was no manual, right? Because I learned how to fix things, right? I can see it. I can go through the processes and I can make things work, right? So now instead of like running away from breaking things, I embrace the fact that, you know what? I don't know what's about to happen, but if it breaks, it's okay because I can fix it, right? Now, sometimes that means that my car repairs go a lot longer than I think they're going to take, but I learn a lot of stuff in the process and I love it. And so now I cherish my curiosity instead of running away from it. So when you're thinking about negative things that go, the negative narratives in your mind and your lack of self-confidence, go to those things and say, okay, one, is this even true, right? It may just be a flat out lie that you've been telling yourself, and call it out for what it is. You are a lie. There is no part to look like. There is no part. There is no visual. This is a lie. No one defines success in this job by how they look. It's by what they accomplish. So get rid of the lie. The next one is acknowledge if it's true and then work to make it better, right? Overcome it, improve the things, right? Say, yeah, that's true, but I can get better at it. And the third thing is acknowledge what's true about the negative thing, but also include the positive stuff, right? Say, I may be like this, but I'm also like this, which when you balance it out, I'll take that weakness because this strength is so much bigger, right? So those are some things that you can do. The next thing you can do on self-confidence is emotion stacking. And I've described emotion stacking before, but it's really simple. When you have all these examples from history or whatever in your mind saying, here's why you're not good at this, or here's why you shouldn't do this, Start counting all the reasons why you should do it or why you are good at it, or examples of where you've been successful in a similar situation in the past, right? And you're going to find that your positives outweigh the negatives. This is also a great way to boost your gratitude, which we'll talk about a little bit later and we've talked about in the past, but emotion stacking is huge. And then the last thing is start small, build it. Do something a little bit bigger, build it. I call this practicing, right? Maybe your goal is I want to build a car, right? Well, don't go out and just start building a car now. Maybe the first thing you need to do is learn what's a transmission, right? And start small. Like, I'm going to figure out what a transmission is and how it works. Or I want to know what a motor is and how it works. What's a 2-cylinder? What's a 4-cylinder? Maybe you repair like a garage, like a lawnmower engine before you repair the one in your car or remodel the car, right? So start small, build it. And that's going to build your confidence in big ways, right? So we call this practicing, where you start small and work up to the big goal, right? So those are 3 tips I have on building your self-confidence, right? Go to the narratives in your mind, identify what they are, address them, do some emotion stacking, and then start small to build your confidence, right? And then when you get to the big show, you're ready to tackle it, right? All right, so capacity. Let's talk about capacity now, right? We can only do what we can do, right? So if we want to do more, we have to become more. We have to build our capacity. And this is going to be the way I see this, and the way many people see our capacity is, what is our inherent ability, right? What is our body? What can our body do? What can our mind do, right? And so our capacity is expanded by how healthy we are, right? Our health is found in 6 buckets: our brain health, our mental health, our physical health, emotional health, social health, and our spiritual health. And all of these 6 buckets are connected, right? So when your brain health starts to drop, so does everything else. When your emotional health improves, so does your physical health, right? So even though they're buckets, right? I call them buckets because in our world, this is how we look at them, right? We talk about our mental health separately. We talk about our body image separately. We talk about our memory separately, right? Our relationships. But even though they're separate, they all impact each other. And there's a lot of things that we can do to expand our capacity, and a lot of things we can do to reduce it. And it's important that we are always expanding our capacity, or at minimum during times of struggle, maintaining that capacity. So here are 10 things that we can do to expand our capacity. And these are the 10 super habits that I talked about before. So I'm not going to go deep with any of these, but this is more a high level for people who are listening for the first time or may not have heard those other episodes. So these 10 super habits, I call them super habits because each one of these impacts every single bucket of health, right? Some of them more than others, but they all have a direct impact on it. The first one is sleep. You got to get your sleep. 2, you got to have a good diet. You cannot be living on McDonald's and soda alone. You shouldn't be living on those at all anyways. But our diet, like this, is like what feeds our body, and our body houses everything, right? So this clay, this mortal shell, right? If it's not working right, a lot of stuff's not going to work right. The next is gratitude. Believe it or not, gratitude impacts everything, right? Doing service for other people. This is December. There's no shortage of opportunities to serve anybody. And you know what's great about gratitude and service? You don't need anything to serve people. You don't need a dime to your name. You don't need a home. You don't need a car. You just need that willingness to be out there and serve and be grateful. I love my favorite sermon or speech, whatever you want to call it, is by Dr. Martin Luther King, and it's called The Drum Major Instinct. And he says, you want to be great? That's fine. You don't need to be a thermonuclear physicist or have your verbs work or be an English major or whatever. All you got to do is have a heart full of love, right? And that's what I love about gratitude and service, is that there's zero barriers to either one of those. And by doing both, you're going to improve every category of health. So improving your capacity, no excuses. You can do it right now. When this podcast is over, just say 10 things you're grateful for. When the podcast is over, go help someone across the street. Help somebody carry their groceries. You don't even need to be shopping at the store. You can just be waiting outside for some old lady and say, can I help you with that? And she's going to say yes, right? At minimum, you'll talk with them on the way to their car and brighten their day, right? So the next thing is number 5, learn new things. When we're learning new things, everything's getting better. And same thing with doing new things. Find and live your purpose. That's number 7. So do new things is number 6. Number 8, daily movement and exercise. That's going to improve every category of health. Number 9, have a community. Be part of something. Have that connection to other people. And 10, prayer and or meditation, right? So these are 10 super habits. You do these 10 things. Just pick one. You don't have to do all 10 of them today. If you are, that's great, right? But find the one that's not working for you or is holding everything else back and start there, right? All right. In addition to these 10 super habits, we need to feed our body and our soul. Now, feeding our body cross the lines to the super habit of diet, right? So we feed our body good stuff, right? But then there's the things we do to feed our soul. And a lot of these things that we do to feed our soul are also in that list of super habits, but there's other things too. So here are 12 primary ways that we feed our soul. So these things I call our primary food, and the food we put in our body, I call it our secondary food. So the first thing that we feed our soul is, how do we find joy and participate in doing that thing, right? Our spirituality, how well are we living our core values and our beliefs? The use of creativity, right? Are we being creative? And that's not just artistic, right? Are we problem solving? Are we looking for new ways to do things? Are we artistic, right? So creativity is big. Our financial stability, right? That's important for our soul. If we're worried about being paycheck to paycheck, that takes a toll on us, right? Our happiness in our career is also important to us. If we are not looking to go into work every day, if we're just like, I don't want to get up, I don't want to go to work, then we're not going to do well there. And if we don't do well there, we're not going to advance well there, and we're not going to find achievement or satisfaction or make contribution, right? If we're coming home regretting and hating the people we work with, we take that baggage home with us, right? So education is important to us too, right? Are we expanding? And this is part of learning and doing new things as well, right? It's part of that super habit. So education is not just going to school. It could be, you know what? I watched some really cool things on YouTube on how to build whatever, or how to fix my washer, or how to fix the dryer, or whatever it is, right? It could be learning how to cook a new food, right? Which goes into another one of these things, right? So that's our education. Are we constantly learning new things? Our physical health is so important. We've talked about that before, right? So physical health is not just like, are we moving our body, eating good food? But sometimes our bodies just don't work right, no matter what kind of great food we put into it, no matter how much we exercise. Sometimes there's going to be things that just don't work right, not the way they're intended to. And we need to address those things, right? So this could be diabetes or obesity. It could be, you might have Hashimoto's or something like that, right? Where you need some intervention and help for people to step in and say, I don't know why, but I get sick once a week and I don't know why. Well, you need help fixing that, right? And you need help identifying what are the possible causes and what are the deficiencies, and maybe there's supplements you take, or maybe there's something else you need to do, right? So our physical activity also contributes to our feeding our soul. Believe it or not, home cooking. I love it. This is probably one of my favorite ones because I love to cook. But when I cook, I also do it with my family. So it helps with relationships, right? And it also feeds my creativity, and it also feeds my desire for yummy food. So I love home cooking. I think that's it hits a lot of these things in the super habits as well as on this list. Our home environment. I'm going to be honest, right? If your home environment is chaotic, everything up here is chaotic. You've got to have an environment that flows with you, right? And my wife has certain ways of doing things. I've got certain ways of doing things. And when you're living in a marriage or a partnership or roommates, sometimes you got to figure out what's going to work for both of you. So home environments are not always easy. Sometimes I'm very jealous of my friends that live by themselves because they get things just the way they want them, right? But make sure your home environment flows well for you. So if you need to hire a home organizer or get some storage bins, or my favorite is my overhead shelves in my garage, do it, right? To carry your home environment, right? The 11th one is your relationships. Take care of your relationships. We've had a few podcasts on relationships, and you've got to have healthy relationships, right? If everything, all your relationships are drama, you got to take care of that, right? And then, and closely aligned to that is your social life. How are you expanding those relationships? Are you getting more? And this is part of the community I talked about in the super habits. Now, we're all different, right? Some people, we get energy from large groups of people, and some of us get energy from small groups of people or one-to-ones. So social life doesn't mean going to a party every weekend. You identify like what kind of social interaction gives you energy or helps you unwind or relax and just be you. And for most of us, it's going to be a variety of those things. So be aware and cognizant of what helps you relax and renew and what energizes you, and make sure you participate in those things. All right. So that's how we build our capacity, is focusing on what feeds our body and our soul, and also what expands our capacity in those super habits, right? What expands our capacity with our mental health, our brain health, social, emotional, physical, spiritual, all that stuff, right? Okay, the next area 3, discipline. There's a book called 4 Disciplines of Execution. I love this book, and it's about corporate goal setting and the disciplines around it. And the reason this book is a bestseller is because discipline is a key trait to successful goal accomplishment. And the thought leaders in the world have identified from experience and observation and research and study that discipline is a key inhibitor to goal accomplishment. And because it happens at work, it also happens with us. And I'm going to share with you what these 4 disciplines are and how they work on an individual level, not just at a corporate level. So the first one is focus on the wildly important, right? They call these WIGs in the book, wildly important goals. There's another book, they call them BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. So get a WIG, get a BHAG. I don't care which one you get, right? But these are the important stuff, wildly important. So as you're considering goals that might be important to you, right? It may be, I'm going to take ownership of my finances. This is wildly important because when I do, I'm going to be able to pay off my debt. It might be, I need to lose 50 pounds like James Keddington did. I actually lost 70 pounds, right? You want to learn how to call me, I'll tell you. So these are wildly important things. If we don't accomplish these things, nothing else matters, right? Now, you shouldn't have a lot of these. In fact, you should only have 1 to 2 of these, maybe 3, right? 3 at the most if you're crazy. But you're not going to accomplish 3 as good as you are 1 or 2, right? So you need to choose 1 or 2 of these wildly important or big, hairy, and audacious goals. The next one is act on lead measures. So what's a lead measure? That's a very corporate sounding word. Well, lead measure are those things that you can influence, right? So if your big, hairy, audacious WIG, that's what we call them, BHAG WIGs, right, is to lose weight, but the only thing you did was weigh yourself, you would never lose weight. You would just know how overweight you are, right? See, measuring your weight is a lagging indicator, right? You can't influence that. But the lead measures to losing weight are good diet. What are you eating, right? A lot of people think exercise is important to losing weight, and exercise helps, right? But if you want to lose weight, it's going to be in your diet. Exercise is for agility, mobility, strength, right? Doing things, right? The losing weight is on diet. So a good lead measure for diet is I'm going to reduce my carb intake, or at least my bad carbs, right? So we get good carbs from vegetables. We don't want to cut those out. And good carbs come from other good sources. So I'm going to reduce like my refined sugars. I'm not going to drink soda, and no more white bread, right? So that's a lead measure. So you're going to act on those things. Like, and I do this a lot with my coaching clients is they want to lose weight. If they don't want to start a specific program, we will start with other things. Like I'm going to cut out soda. And the reason we kind of start with these lead measures is in weight loss, there's like a snowball effect. But once you cut out one thing, you're now capable of cutting out more things and replacing those things with the healthier side. And then you get like this big snowball effect. I actually recommend a program that I won't talk about here because it incorporates all the lead measures for weight loss as well as all the healthy habits. And so people accomplish their weight goals a lot faster. But if that's not for you because of whatever reason, then there's other things you can do that this lead measure important. The next part is create a cadence of accountability. And we talked about this accountability earlier as one of these barriers. And so we'll go into this deeper. But if you're not accountable towards accomplishing a goal, when it gets hard or when the whirlwind of the day comes in and all the mess and all the demands and everybody screaming at you comes into play, you're going to start paying attention to all the noise outside and not give attention to the need inside, right? So that's the next thing is create a cadence of accountability so you can ignore the noise going on around you and focus on that wildly important stuff. And the last one is measure it, right? So this is where we see those lagging indicators, like where we weigh ourselves. Like I weigh myself every week. I want to know where am I at, right? And so we need a way to measure our growth and the efforts we're doing, because while we'll never change the goal, sometimes we do change the behavior that leads to that goal. And so when we measure, we have a good idea if the activities and behaviors that we're doing is leading toward goal accomplishment. And if it's not, we can pivot. So that is the 4 disciplines of execution that we need to deploy for ourselves. All right, the next step, the 4th one, consistency. James Clear, great name. He's the master of habit building and the author of the book Atomic Habits. He says that consistency is more important than intensity. And remember earlier when I talked about start small, this is what he's talking about. Oftentimes we feel this need to, I've got to feed the world or end homelessness, right? We need something that's Instagram worthy, something we're going to post on Facebook and make the world think, my goodness, that guy's doing everything, right? But in reality, we need to build our resiliency first, right? And you guys know I'm a swimmer, water polo player, so I'm going to use a swimming analogy. When people join water polo or tell me like, oh, I can never do that sport, I can't swim very good. Well, yeah, because you don't swim every day, right? The reality is, even people who swim laps aren't ready for water polo. It's a different type of swimming. There's different intensity, right? But the only way you get ready for that is if you start by becoming consistent with swimming, right? And then you up your intensity to become water polo shape, right? And so you just can't say, oh, I'm going to go be an all-star in a water polo game, even if you're never swimming. You got to be consistently swimming so you can be competitive in that game, right? And so choose goals, right, that are going to help you be consistent before you are big, right? Before you get something that's intense or grandiose in nature, right? So consistency. And these are also things part of like, as we're building our capacity, this is strongly linked to our capacity. You cannot, if you don't have the capacity to do something huge, when you try, you're going to wear yourself out so fast and then you're going to give up and quit, right? And so you need to pick, well, while I believe that you need to pick goals that stretch you, I do not believe in picking goals that are going to overwhelm you and suffocate you. And there's a difference between stretch goals and goals that suffocate. And so pick goals that you can be consistent at, even if you're being stretched to your limits, right? Just don't go beyond those. All right. And so the next one and the last one is accountability. All of these are important, but this is huge, right? A lot of people think that accountability is about sharing with the world what you're going to do. I'm going to, like I said, end world hunger with my new invention. I'm going to invent something that ends world hunger. Well, that's great. But believe it or not, there's some science and study that shows that sharing your goals with the world may not be the best thing, right? It may work for some, but it doesn't work for most people. How you build accountability, it's actually a little bit smaller and quite a bit more intimate. So here's 2 things that you can do to build accountability. 1, find a friend or small group of people that has shared values or goals and work together on it. Every week on Tuesdays at 5 o'clock, I get on the phone with my lifelong friend, Dave. And Dave and I, we are accountable to each other. And we tell each other our goals, what we're working on, and that's it. And sometimes we brainstorm, like if he's frustrated or if I'm frustrated, like, Dave, I need some advice. And he's helped me in so many ways. And he really wasn't giving advice. He just shares it with me, what he does, right? And I don't think I really give him advice. I just share with him what I do. But together each week, and sometimes we miss these weeks, like I'll be on vacation or he's gone or whatever. But for the most part, we do this every week. And we have shared goals and shared values. And our shared goals and values are that we want to see each other become better husbands and fathers. That's our shared values, right? And so we work together helping each other do that. How we're doing that is completely different, right? But that's our shared value and goal. So get together with people who do that. The other thing you can do, which a lot of people do, is hire a coach, right? Now, some people think, oh, I can't afford Tony Robbins. Yeah, most of us can't, right? Some people can't. But guess what? You don't need a Tony Robbins level coach, right? So you would never hire Messi for your like eight-year-old soccer team. Why wouldn't you hire Messi? Now, sure, they would all love to have Messi come and coach them or do a clinic, right? But there's nothing Messi can teach them that a volunteer dad or mom can't also teach them. Well, why is that? Because of where that 8-year-old is at, right? What is Messi going to tell him differently than a high school player that's a volunteer? What is he going to tell an 8-year-old differently? He's not. Because they're not to a level that exceeds that high school player's knowledge and capacity. So if you're at the bottom, right, of trying to survive or get better, you can hire almost any coach and get better. So you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on a coach, right? But if you're like at the top of your game and you're the CEO of, a Fortune 500 company, you're probably hiring Tony Robbins, right? Because you've gotten to those high levels. And in order to get to a higher level, you need to hire the best, right? Which would be a Tony Robbins type, right? So don't think that when you see all these coach things out there that, man, I need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a coach. No, there are so many coaches out there in so many categories that you can hire that aren't going to break your bank, that aren't going to cost you money. In fact, they're going to make you money because you're going to now be doing things better. You're going to be saving so much time, right? And this coach is going to hold you accountable. So if you're at the beginning of doing something like weight loss, just find someone who's lost weight or someone who's studied all the diets and they're going to help coach you. I've helped a lot of people lose weight. I'm not a nutritionist. I haven't gone to school for nutrition. I've helped a lot of people lose weight because I've put in the time to learn about different diets. I've lost the weight myself. I've kept it off myself, right? I haven't coached college water polo because I never was a college water polo player. I played high school. And so I help a lot of kids in the 12U, 10U, 14U age group, right? And I do really, really, really well there. And I get them prepared for the guys that are taking them into the high school and older levels because I can set great foundations for them. So hire a coach at the stage where you are at, right? And don't feel like every coach is going to be crazy expensive or that you need the best. You need someone who's gotten to where you're at and gone a little bit further. That's what you need, right? Now, if you can afford someone and it's worth it to you, that's way beyond those levels, that's fine too. I'm not saying don't do that, right? I'm just saying if money is a barrier or if availability is a barrier by those other people, don't let that stop you, right? Don't let that stop you. All right. So we've covered a lot today in this. And so here's my challenge for you today. This is my challenge for you between now and the end of the month / the end of the year. Because yes, we're in December. Pick a goal that stretches you. Something that's important, a wildly important goal, a big, hairy, audacious one, but does not bankrupt you, does not collapse you, does not suffocate you. And pick one, maybe two. Don't go to the 3 mark I talked about earlier. That's for later. Pick one, right? Do not ignore the capacity building stuff that I talked about. Okay. Build your capacity, right? 2, become disciplined, right? Is it understanding what the lead measures are? Is it having accountability? Is it being able to measure it, right? So do the discipline stuff. Find someone to be accountable to, whether it be a friend or a coach, wherever you need the help the most, right? Here's how I'm going to tell you whether or not you need a friend or a coach. If it's something you've done before and you have the skills and ability to get back there, you need a friend, right? If you've never done it before, you need a coach, okay? So Dave and I, we do actually often coach each other because there's things that we have that we have not done before and we're coaching each other, right? But there's blocks that I've got that Dave cannot help me with because he's not done it either. So I need a coach for that, and I've got coaches for that, okay? So there you go, people. I hope you're prepared to tackle 2024. Now, in the meantime, I want you to join the Better Me Nation community because we're going to help you stay motivated. We're going to help you with the tips and the tricks and the knowledge and the skills to build your capacity. You're going to find resources and coaches to help you achieve your goals. You're going to have the accountability. So if you don't follow the podcast, please do that now. I want you to do that. I want you to share it with your friends too, right? That would help me out. I would appreciate that. Join the Better Me Nation community on Facebook or follow me on LinkedIn. I would really, really appreciate that. And if you want that help going into 2024 or any other time that you're setting goals and doing hard things, I want you to call me because we are going to help you have the confidence to overcome the hard stuff, build the capacity and to sustain that capacity to deal with the hard stuff as they come, and then you move on, and then have that ambition to become your best self. But do the things I talked about here. Pick that goal, pick 1 to 2 of them. Don't ignore the capacity, right? Have some disciplines in your life. Start small and simple, right? And get accountability, and you're going to be awesome. I know it. You're going to be great. Have a happy new year, and I'll see you, or you'll hear me next time.